Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu, my dear guests and viewers. I welcome you again to another episode of the forum. I still have my brother Juma K. Kamara, who is the Director of Communications of the Ombudsman. Today he is joined by Mr. Lamin Sedikan. Lamin Sedikan is the Principal Investigator in the Ombudsman of the Gambia. I welcome you all to the forum, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Yeah. So we dive into the question straight. I would like to start with Mr. Juma. Mr. Juma, like during the 2021 elections of the Gambia, the Ombudsman was involved in elections observations, but you started from the voter registration of the elections. Why did the Ombudsman involve in that? Mr. Juma, please.
Thank you very much. It is a pleasure to be here again. The Office of the Ombudsman has a mandate, and that is to dispense administrative justice. And there are institutions that are within the jurisdiction of the Ombudsman. IEC is also a public institution. It is an independent institution, but an independent public institution. So, as far as Ombudsman is concerned, when it comes to the execution of the mandate of the Ombudsman, we have the mandate to be proactive. The recent Ombudsman participated or observed the registration of voters. We try to be proactive. You can, as an Ombudsman institution, the Ombudsman can sit down and wait for complaints or wait for grievances and then get up to resolve those grievances. But the Ombudsman is also empowered by the Constitution to be proactive. We all will agree that election is a very important, it's a very serious national issue. A matter of that significance, the Ombudsman cannot be left out. So, not so that is why the Ombudsman participated. Now, why should we start with the registration of voters and not wait until election? The registration of voters is the foundation on which the election itself is based. So you have a faulty foundation, there is likelihood the rest of the processes ahead will have issues. You have a shaky foundation, wobbly foundation, there is a likelihood the rest of the issues or the programs or activities of the Independent Electoral Commission that lie ahead will also be shaky. So it is our interest that we create, we ensure that what is going to lay the foundation of this election is strong. It is on a stronger footing so that we are able to work with the IEC and other stakeholders in the promotion of integrity or election integrity. If you look at the registration process, what it suggests is that some people who are entitled to vote will be registered. That also means that those who are not entitled to vote will not be registered. So it is of importance to us to know, to look at the process, to see that all eligible Gambians, people who have the requirements to register are registered, and those who are not supposed to are not registered. And also that the process itself is devoid of acts of maladministration or any form of administrative injustice or the denial of the rights of the people, because the people have a right to vote in elections. But if they are not elected, if they are not registered, then they will not be able to exercise that right to vote in the election. So all of these issues surrounding human rights of Gambians, importance of election, the issues relating to the dispensation of administrative justice, and so that we fight against all forms of election malpractice. These are issues that we believe should start from the level of registration, and it is important how we participated, and we have and our participation, I think, helped to add credibility and to the process, and to make the process more open, transparent, in the sense that we have come up with a report which we said, especially with the Independent Electoral Commission, in order to help them improve future programs relating to registration of voters.
Thank you, Mr. Kamara. Now to Mr. Lamin Sedikan. Lamin Sedikan is the principal investigator in the office of the Ombudsman. Mr. Sedikan, like Mr. Kamara has said, after the voter observation, we went into the elections proper. So what were some of the things you focused during your observation in the elections of the country?
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Moderator. As my colleague have rightly said, Ombudsman is an institution that is established to promote good governance, and one cannot attain good governance without elections. So elections are integral part of good governance. Sure. So as he said, that is why we cannot just fold our hands and not partake in the election cycle process of this country. And also, as far as the Office of the Ombudsman mandate is concerned, to be an overseer of all the institutions within the public sector in the execution of their duties. That is why we have to go out to see how good governance procedures are being followed. So after the registration process, it was followed by the presidential elections. As he has said, you have to have a good foundation in order for you to get a better results. Election is a cycle. Start from registration to the local government elections. That is the election cycle we have in the Gambia. Registration, presidential, parliamentary, local government, and the chairmanship. So the chairmanship concludes the cycle of this country. So one of the first steps in the electoral cycle, that is the presidential elections, where the country had to choose who to lead them in the next 5 years, who has to go back to the people to seek the mandate from the people so that they could give him another mandate to lead the country. So our mandate as an administrative institution responsible for administrative justice, we look into certain administrative procedures during the elections. Like recruitment of electoral officials was an area that we looked into. That is before the election, because people have to be charged with responsibility to conduct the election. These were the presiding officers, the assistant returning officers, the polling officers, the polling agents. Okay, even the securities were all within the electoral staffs. We categorize them. So we look into that to see whether there are no foul plays in the recruitment of these staffs. Because I can tell you, we have complaints regarding to these people from the registration. Some registration officials, okay, lodged complaints who were treated unfairly, and we have to intervene because due to our mandate on the IEC. But the day of the election proper, we observe from the opening of polling stations. We observe the voting process. We observe the closing process, the counting process, and the collation of results. Okay. The first process that we observe, that is the opening. Because there are procedures that are laid down that should be followed in the opening process. And the office was able to dispatch 20 observers across the country. And each of these 20 observers, each were assigned with a polling station to observe, to see how the opening is conducted, to see whether all the requirements are fulfilled in the opening. Okay? So the same like the voting. The voting also, each of the observer was asked to move from one polling station to another, at least spend a minimum of almost 30 to 45 minutes to observe how the voters are treated, how the process of voting is carried out. Okay? From there, we move into the closing. And the closing is where observers are to be present, because procedures that are followed in the opening is the same, almost similar procedures are to be followed in the closing. Like, for example, if I observe an opening at the polling station or at the buffer zone here, and during the opening, the way the drums are sealed, normally the serial numbers of these drums have been taken. They are recorded. These serial numbers that are recorded, you as an observer, you need to take note of them. So taking note of them will give you an opportunity that during closing you can verify them. So that's why all our observers were advised, trained, that is where you do your opening is the best place for you to do your closing. So that you can observe where there are any tampering of the seals that are done to the drums. So what I'm explaining is the process, not what we observe. I'm not yet into that. Okay? So that is also observed by the Office of the Ombudsman observers in the field, together with other international observers and local observers. Okay? So after the closing, we have the counting process as well. So the counting is also a process that has to be followed. And the people that are to be present in the counting should also be observed to see whether the right people were at the counting centers or whether the counting centers were accessible. All that has been observed by the Office of the Ombudsman. From the counting, you have the collation, because the collation centers is where we have every constituency will have a collation center. Because we realize that Gambia's electoral system is now a spot counting. Every polling station will count the token, that is at the end of the closing, they will count the number of votes casted. Okay? So that results acquired from each polling station is now transmitted to the collation centers. This is where the tabulations are done. Okay? So at the collation centers also, our observers were there to observe what the conditions of the collation centers are and how the collations are also being done. So basically, these were the issues that we observed during the past presidential elections. It was after the collations where the results were tabulated for every constituency or every collation center. this is what comes together to make the results of the entire country, which was announced by the IEC.
That's right.
Yes, so basically those were the process that we observed.
Thank you, Mr. Sedikan. And now back to Mr. Kamara. Kamara, you've talked about like the voter registration. Can you please like share with us like some of the findings that you have observed during the voter registration, please?
All right, thank you. When the Ombudsman participated, observed the voter registration process, our objective was to look at some issues as they were unfolding and bring that to the notice of the IEC. That is because it is perhaps the practice that when an exercise is being conducted, you observe it, and when it is concluded, you give your recommendations so that you can impact the next exercise or the exercises to come. But for us, we wanted to look at the exercise and in the process come up with identify some issues and bring that to the notice of the IEC. So that while the process is going on, they can still make some arrangements, reorganizations, or take some steps to rectify certain issues. So as part of the process, we issued two reports. One was a preliminary report, that was while the process was going on, and the other one was after the report. Now, when we observe the registration of voters, one thing stands out is that I think the process was well organized, and it was going on smoothly. However, there were issues that we had to bring to the notice of the IEC, and that's the findings we want to discuss with you. One major issue that affected the process was interruption of the process as a result of the lack of, or the registration centers running out of ribbons. Maybe we can call it ribbons cartridges, right? Because that's what they use to print the cards. So, and that problem was widespread. It did not only affect the urban area, but also in the rural areas. So it's like the process was going on, and what was happening is that people would go to, as far as that observation part of that issue is concerned, people would go to registration centers, and they would write down their names, and they would go home. Why? Because they could not print the cards on time. So it's like initially, when this process started, for a while, everything was going on. People would go and then put the necessary questions to them, and then put them through the processes, and then print the card. There you go, you go home. But when that problem started, now the interruptions. Now, people would go there, go home, and they were required to come back for their cards. This caused a lot of waste of time for people who were applying, people who were registering. So they were not taking their contact details. Although in one of the places we were told, that they did take their contact details. But even while we were there, we realized that somebody came to collect his card, and he was told that his card was not yet done. And when we asked, did you take his contact? They said, no, they have not. So that means that you can say conclusively that they were asking people to go and to come back without taking their card. So this caused a lot of inconvenience to people. And at some point, you go to registration centers, you find stack of cards not collected. And some people were so frustrated that they were saying they would not come back for their cards. Because you would also, because it's like you would sit down at home, you come back, okay, to ask for your card, only to be told that your card is not ready. So how were they doing it? They were taking laptops from registration centers. For example, SROs would take laptops from registration centers and take them to the regional headquarters to print. And to us, this is also another point of observation. This raises issues of transparency. When people know that the cards were not being printed at the registration centers, but only at the regional headquarters, as a result of the lack of ribbon or availability of ribbon, they may think that taking or printing cards outside could give or could be an opportunity for dubious acts. Because here is this process. Not many people are aware of any measures or safeguard measures put in place by the IEC. It's not like there were sufficient or adequate sensitization relating to that issue. In fact, that was an unforeseen situation that they had to go and print outside. I mean, like to other places and then come back to the registration centers. That issue was an issue that we observed and we also brought to the attention of the IEC. Now, the registration team members, when the process started, and some of the registration centers, they were not coming on time. They were not coming on time. And sometimes they will also close before time. So what happens is, if you do not open a registration center on time, those people who want to go to work and they desire to pass by, their time will be wasted. Their time will be wasted because they're hoping that you can go, register, and go and sort out other issues. Go to work or go and sort out other issues. Now, going to a registration center and not finding the team intact, being there, what it could lead to was the waste of time of people. But also, it's a violation of the term of the contract term for the staff who were hired to do the registration on behalf of IEC. So we did raise that issue. And the other issue is closing before time. In fact, in one of the stations, when we arrived there, this time, for example, around 20 minutes before time, they had already packed. So assuming somebody said, okay, let me go to work and then or do some other, run some other errands and come back, and you will come there only to find that they are not there. So another inconvenience, right? So those are issues that are not acceptable, because usually, if you announce that you are operating a registration center and you have provided information to people that what time they can find you there or what time you will close, it means that it was necessary, it was important that people should find you there. So we brought also that to the attention of the IEC. Now, if you look at other issues relating to the conduct of the staff, they had responsibilities. You either issuing cards here, or filling forms, or conducting interview, or taking photos, or giving out the. So you find that there were different people were, sometimes the person who is supposed to be, even a security officer, sometimes you would find a security officer sitting at a desk doing, registration work. And he was supposed to be like providing security. Or even another person who is not supposed to issue attestation cards would give that to people, maybe to take them to accounts or whoever is supposed to endorse that, or who's not supposed to be a card issuer, is not supposed to be a card issuer, or taking photographs. So for us, the reason we observed that this issue was not proper is that, okay, assuming there were absenteeism or absence, then it would make sense to step in and do something, and step in and carry out the work of a registration team member, because work should be allowed to go on. So, but if people are there and you're just crisscrossing doing different things, what that does is that it may affect the quality of work. Or whether it's wrongdoing or something did not go right, it will be difficult to apportion blame. Then you begin to say, no, I didn't do that because another person who was handling my responsibility. So it is very good that there's clear-cut delineation of responsibilities. There's clear-cut separation of responsibilities and duties, so that if whatever does not go right, if anything that has got to do with quality of camera picture here in this, definitely it's not mubashir. It definitely does not mubashir. But if a right question is not asked, definitely it is not the cameraman's, So there are certain things clearly, okay, this is mubashir's fault, this is the cameraman's fault, this is the control room, or this is the editor's fault, right? So this is simple administrative procedures that we observe not only in offices, but also when we are out of offices. We are supposed to ensure the security officer is supposed to ensure that he's a security officer. So, and the other issue relating to the security officers, they were even coming to, some of the security officers were coming to work in mufti, not even wearing a uniform. So, and that was even so easy for them to sit at the so you arrive, you think that, okay, here there is nobody's providing security, okay, but you do not realize. It is only after your interaction that you realize, okay, this guy sitting here doing this work is in fact the police officer attached here. So, and do you know what happened? In one of the registration centers, there was the police officer and somebody quarreling. It was almost generating into a fight. And to me, I said, look, had the police officer not had been in the uniform, he would have earned all of that respect. Do you understand? He would have earned all that respect, because when you are in uniform, people would give you that respect that they wouldn't normally give you. Like what I mean is like respect that you wouldn't normally give to somebody in the street. Of course, you are supposed to respect everybody, but you definitely would give that to a person in uniform. So you can see that issue emanated came as a result, I think, partly because the security was not even looking like a security officer. So the security officer who was supposed to control people would be quarreling and fighting, with people. So that is one of the issues, not strictly observing their responsibilities, and they were doing, what you were supposed to do, another person was doing that. That was one of the issues that was affecting the conduct of the, the team members. But now, looking at the other issues relating to equipment, it was not only that the ribbons were like, there was shortage of ribbons, but some other simple materials were also lacking sometimes at some places. For example, the thumb pad. It's an electronic thumb pad not working, or the generator is faulty. This problem of NAVEC in the Gambia. So they had generators that they were supposed to put on the generators to if there was no electricity. But if we find out, for example, we go to places we find no electricity, and then the generator is faulty, or maybe the generator is taken to whatever place, maybe to provide generator service because maybe those people don't have. Whatever is the case, they could not provide electricity supply. So maybe even the forms, finished and then they're not replenished. The or the computer UPS is not functioning. So it's like faulty equipment also we observed contributed to the interruption of the process or the process in some of the registration centers. But also, if you look at the organization of the whole thing, you go to some places, you find that a number of villages are supposed to register at one place. So they were overcrowding at some of the registration centers. Because you definitely cannot call all the people from village A, village 2, village, like maybe they say 3 villages or more, okay, to come and register at a place. So that would be so much pressure on the registration staff, but also the commotion, the noise, the environment. In some of those places, they were not okay. And the fact that you organize that event in the rainy season, in the not in Combos, but it happened in a few places in the provinces. Rain interrupted the some of the processes, registration process. Now, then that also raises another issue, that is bad planning, in the sense that you want to organize a registration of voters, and you want to do so in the rainy season, and because you have no control, because we're already in the season, you have no control what will happen relating to rain. So the fact that the process were not largely interrupted by rain, it was just pure luck, right? Out of pure luck, because a number of places they had open place, not like you're in the building. Of course, some places were, but not all the places were in the building. So those things were some of the issues that we observed, and even the process, even the how do you call it, the card itself. When they printed the cards, you realize that some of the cards had like white streak on them. So that means that the quality was affected. We wouldn't say for sure what was responsible, but for us we thought, okay, and also due to some when we interviewed, that they were as a result of those particles getting into these things, because they were done in the open. So you have those particles affecting the printing, and the machines were affected as a result, and so that was what you could see on the cards, so affecting the cards. So some of things that we observed were the other issues relating to the challenges that these people had to, the registration team members face, and maybe the issues of attestation. Perhaps if time was there, we could also go into the challenges that we observed or interview, because we also interviewed people, and then we witnessed some of the issues, some of the challenges that these people had to say in relation to some of the issues that I have already outlined.
On the ground. Yeah, those are like excellent findings that you had on the ground. And back to Mr. Sidikan, like during the observation of the elections, what are some of the things that you found on the ground? Some of your observations that you find on the ground.
Okay. Okay. Just like my colleague have rightly mentioned about the findings or the issues observed during the registration, we had some similar issues with regards to the polling centers, because this time it's not registration center, it's polling centers. Yeah, although the Ombudsman was unable to observe the pre-election assessment, because normally in a normal observation setup, a day before the election, observers need to be at polling stations where certain things need to be verified. Due to certain resource constraints, we are unable to do that. But the day of the polling, that is the day of the elections, we were at the opening, and we realized that at some polling stations, at the time of the opening, some polling agents were not present, because we know there are a number of political parties that contested for the presidential elections. Some independent candidates agents were not present at the opening, because the procedures for the opening is in such a way that everything is supposed to be transparent at the time of the opening. Transparent in the sense that each candidate is supposed to be represented by an agent. And also, the security need to be present at the polling station, together with the polling staffs. When you say the polling staffs, we mean the presiding officers, the assistant presiding officers, the polling agent or the polling officer. Because if I say polling agent and polling officer, maybe those who took part in elections would know, but some people may not. The polling agent is the one who used to dip the finger into the ink. So the polling officer is the one who stands maybe somewhere distant where we have stations, where you have two polling stations, try to separate where your name is, that you give directions to where a voter is to vote. Okay, so we realized that at the time of the opening, some polling agents for certain candidates were not present due to one reason or the other. Also, we look at the accessibility of the polling station. That is very important, because the ombudsman is both into administrative justice and human rights. And when you say human rights, that is equal opportunities for all. Within us, we have people who are physically challenged. So the laying of the polling station was one of the issues that we observed. Because if you go to most of the polling stations, they are either in classrooms where there are no ramps for people that are physically challenged to enter the polling station. So this was really observed in most of the polling stations. Those who are physically challenged, sometimes they may be escorted by an outside or maybe a family member to go into the booth to cast their vote. Whilst others, you have to be lifted to be helped in order for you to access the polling booth. So that was an observation that we did, because it was a human rights issue, equal access to all. Okay? So we realized that also some polling stations, the police, as Juma said, the security were not providing security outside. Instead, they are sitting within the polling station. And before you protect inside, when an intruder already entered, it will be difficult for you to secure. But if you are outside, that would have been easy to stop the intruder from not interfering into the election process. So that was also an issue, because elections, we know, they are very tempting. Yes. So when we are into it, all the early warning signs need to be looked at. So that is why securities were dispatched to every polling station. Each polling station we are given 2 police officers. But sometimes you realize that all the police officers will be sitting inside the polling stations. So this was what we observed. This was one of the things we observed. Also, if you go to some polling stations, because you can go to place where you have streams of polling stations, up to 5 polling stations, and there were no display of voter list in these polling stations. Hadn't been there are display of voter list before the polling day, people can identify, am I in polling station 1, 2, or 3? But guess what happened? You'll just go to the polling station, join a queue until you are 2 or 3 people before you cast your vote, then only to be told that you are supposed to be in the next polling station. So this creates frustration. Voters were not the least happy. Some polling officers were not doing their work as expected. Some, it was in the morning that they were busy, but when the process started, they relaxed. So this has created some confusion among or within the polling station. Some, in fact, eventually went into violence, because how do you expect me to be on the queue for almost maybe an hour or so, only to be told that go to the next polling station, while the person that is just coming and you ask the guy to come and cast his vote. So this has created some misunderstanding. Hadn't been polling lists were displayed at the polling stations day or 2 or a week before, many people will be able to know, oh, I'm in polling station A, B, or C. So that is also one thing we observe during the process. For the closing, it was done in a way that there were no hitches to that extent as far as our observations are concerned. Because we realized that most of the polling agents that were absent during the opening were there in the closing. So, and our observers were also there to verify the seals of the drums. Yeah. So we also realized that some of the booths were not transparent. That is the polling booth. Transparent in such a way that they are dark. Although IEC provided light, but some of these lights were not sufficient. And normally this is what creates invalid votes. Some people will just go and drop the token on top of the drum because they could not see. While the presiding officer was supposed to sit closer to the booth to listen to whether a token is casted or not. So that was also part of our observation. It was also observed that some polling stations, the drums, the tokens was unable to fit into the drum. And this was reported, and IEC instant, well, they were communicated. They came to address some of those situations. Yeah, so we also realized that there was no interference of that nature, but some policemen were doing the job of the polling officers instead of providing security, as it happened in the registration process. Yeah. So basically, these were some of the things that, when you come to the face masks also issue, because it was not a requirement for voters to come with face masks, but hand sanitizers were something that was that they were told that people need to be applying hand sanitizers. But you realize that that was not also something that was fully followed. Yes, at some polling stations, because this was the time of COVID was still here. That was 2021 in December. So COVID was still here. So this distancing and some of these protocols were advised for them to be followed at some polling stations. Hand washing, in fact, was not observed. Although some IEC, some polling stations, IEC was able to provide buckets for hand washing, but how many of people will wash their hand, or maybe apply hand sanitizers or face masks? So that was also something that was observed in some polling stations. But generally, the atmosphere was peaceful. The process was in such a way that there was no that much interference. There was no interference as far as the outsiders are concerned. Yes, the process was fair and free. For the counting, there were not enough police officers in some areas. Although the Gambia is peaceful, but you compare it to some countries that are so violent, where you have a counting station, only 2 police officers. That is a spot counting, only 2 police officers providing security at the counting centers. And if you go to collection center also, it was like that. Few police officers were manning the gate of the collection centers, whilst inside you see none. Yeah, so this was something that was put to IEC, but we have seen that in the other elections, that is the parliamentary, they have improved on it, because security is paramount. Sure. This is where results are tabulated for them to be transmitted to the election room for announcement. So that place needs to be secured. And also, the calculations of the results, the way it was done, there are some observations that we did. Hadn't been there this computerized something, certain errors could have been avoided. Okay, but people were recording handwritten. You count this and this, you record. And agents were issued with forms where the results are. Okay, so it was according to the procedure, it was the same results that were taken to the collection centers for computation. So, but there is no electronic instrument that were used. They are using calculators. You call like polling station talenting 1, talenting 2. You just call it that way. Calculated from each will calculate on a mobile phone or maybe. Well, hadn't been we have a device that you can calculate cross this and that. I think that would have it would have been better in order to avoid certain errors from happening.
That's right.
Yeah.
So in the like those are very like nice like observations that you had in the Ombudsman. So in the like next episode of the forum, we will talk about some of the recommendations that you had that you sent to the IEC. But like until then, that is all that time had allowed us. From like MT Studios, The Gambia. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu.